I just actually celebrated my 7-year anniversary as a full-time Microsoft employee yesterday. I completely forgot about it until this morning, so I'm now celebrating it now with all of you. So thank you. I was on the Maui team, yeah. So the Xamarin and then Maui, part of that whole transition. I'm a senior PM now. I came in as a baby PM to Xamarin and was part of this whole evolution or whatever you want to call it. Between Xamarin, or it was when Microsoft acquired it right before I started, and where we are today with Maui and hybrid and all these amazing things. A little bit over a year ago, I started to dip my toes into this cloud thing called Aspire, mostly just because I was getting angry because I didn't know what it was. And I kept being like, why do you keep telling me this is important? I don't get it. Eventually, I got like fully sucked in, and I now am the product lead for Aspire. So I have adopted a second child. Maui is still always my first love, and we will be showing some Maui Aspire in this presentation towards the end. What I want to start with, though, is just what Aspire is in general, and show you a little bit about how it works. You know, the Blazor we use to build Aspire, how Aspire works with Blazor, and then we can talk about how Maui fits into all of that, and how you can try all of it. So if you want to put my slides up, please. I don't know if I have the permission to. No, thank you. I'm used to being the person who puts the people up and down from the things on StreamYard, and so it's very weird to be like a guest and not have control. All the buttons are in different places. If you're here, you're probably a .NET developer. I don't need to tell you what .NET is, but I do want to point out that a good way to think about Aspire is it's part of this ecosystem, right? Aspire isn't a platform, even though it's got code. You'll see. It's not a tool, but it is something that glues all of this stuff together and lets you use it all in any of these places. And it's really this future first, version of .NET for not just .NET developers, but for any type of developer, because we were looking across the stack of what people were building, especially a couple of years ago when we were thinking about getting folks onto the cloud. Now it's about getting you all to like build AI enabled experiences for your customers. But this stuff still applies. Apps need to be able to be observable, resilient. They need to scale. So on Black Friday or on Amazon Prime Day or whatever it is, your checkout API can suddenly handle 100 times the requests, right? And you need to be able to manage it without having a USB drive that you can go into a server room and plug in and fix, right? And so .NET, I'm sure a lot of you already use a lot of this stuff that we've shipped over the past, 10 years since Core started. But in particular, Poly for resiliency, we have built-in logging. It's super powerful. We have DI with metrics, with open telemetry and dimensions and all these words that if you're really into metrics, you get. And if you don't know what those words are, it doesn't matter. You can just ignore it. But what we haven't really done for you is turned these things on or given you our opinion on how these things should work or how you should use these things, because we're .NET and we like you to just do whatever you think is right. But there's become this overwhelming choice where you start with something and you go, okay, I have my front end. I have a JSON file. This is how I start all of my sample apps. I hard code my data. Or maybe I hit some API, right? And I just do basic REST stuff. And then someone goes, okay, now I need to add a database. Well, which database do I use? Oh, I'll use Postgres. Okay, how do I set that up again? What's the container? You start asking these questions, you get it set up, blah, blah, blah. You start splitting out. Maybe you're doing microservices because you're fancy. Maybe you're doing a mono repo. Doesn't really matter to me. And then you start adding more, like caches and observability for the metrics. You might add the event bus. You might start adding in the AI. And suddenly my cute little sample Blazor app has become a full stack nightmare. And it all works on my machine. And then I tell one of my coworkers to clone it and see how to fix a bug. And they follow a 45-minute README. And then they have to keep asking me for things. And I have created a monster. Not to mention, I'm usually hosting either all of these things in custom Docker containers that I then need to remember all of the parameters for and use YAML to build a compose or something, or take a screenshot and text it to myself to put it on my Mac. Because I'm a Maui developer, so I'm going to be doing iOS on my Mac. But I also have to maybe deploy some of them just because it's easier and hit my endpoints and come up with the concept of a staging environment and all this stuff just to build an end-to-end workflow like locally. And that is where Aspire came in. We looked at this landscape of what the cloud native foundation. Cloud native used to mean like you used Kubernetes. Now it just means you're an app. Like if you run with something and on an endpoint, I consider you cloud native. If you use the concept of a container anywhere, I consider you cloud native. But they have this landscape on their foundation website where they group things based on what they are, and it becomes this like plug and play. What should I use for streaming? Oh, there's 18 things in that box, and they all have a different name. All right, let me pick NATs. Okay, how do I even set that up? Oh, and you have to become an expert in all of these different things just to build your end to end. And then, getting it to run on someone else's machine is a separate nightmare. So Aspire wants to be, it's been out for a year. The tools, templates, and packages for your modern apps, whatever the adjective you want to use is today. Like we say observable, production ready, but whatever. Modern. I don't care. Your front end with a back end. That is a modern app to me. So what it gives you is a inner loop that doesn't suck. You're going to be very excited. A developer dashboard that lets you see your entire stack running locally. So you can hit F5 and see everything that's happening. A set of NuGet packages, we call them integrations, and what they are our opinions for either turning things on or bootstrapping things up in your actual code. The nice thing is they're just code, so you can comment them out. They're not wrappers or abstractions or anything. They just add some stuff. They do some plumbing. They're glue, if you will, to your existing integration with databases or caches or whatever. And then we also help you with deployment. And so the best way to show people Aspire, first, I'll show you this slide, which is why people like Aspire. And then I'll show you what it actually is, because explaining it is a disaster. Too much stuff. These are some of the quotes we've collected over the past year. We have a lot, but the Aspire, my favorite quote that I got was, "It just lets us develop again. We don't have to deal with the rest of the stuff. We just get to write code." And now with Copilot and whatever other AIs you're using, it's now I can not only clone and get started in a repo, but iterate on the repo faster than ever. Like it's super powered, right? So yeah, onboarding is a huge part of Aspire. The telemetry flowing locally is big in the dashboard. We'll look at that. Being able to build your own versions of our integrations as NuGet packages and ship those out has been super powerful, especially for big enterprises. So if you have really enforced standards, or you have your own telemetry provider, your own logging provider, your own egress, you just build those. We're actually building these things internally for Microsoft Teams. And we help with deployment, which is the worst part for me as a mobile developer. I'm used to clicking through the App Store and yelling at Apple and their submission forms. But as a cloud person, I suddenly had to start looking at like Bicep, YAML. Horrible. So let's look at Aspire. I'm going to start in VS Code. That's where I've been playing around most of the time right now. But this all works in VS as well. My second demo with MAUI will be from VS, so we'll hit both of them. This is eShop. This is the app that let me pull up my Solution Explorer here. So I am using the C# Dev Kit extension in VS Code. I'm sure most of you are familiar with that by now. It basically lets VS Code understand what a solution file is, and you get some nice right-click actions here. But it also ports over the ability to do like full debugging and the IntelliSense and the project system, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, eShop, which is on GitHub under eShop on the .NET organization, is that app with a screenshot progression. So it's got all the APIs, it's got the databases, it's got the cache, it's got the RabbitMQ event bus, whatever. And I just cloned a fresh version of this just before this. I ran it once to make sure it works. That's why here's this. We'll show what that does. But it is already configured with Aspire. And so what the AppHost does, let me shrink this, is allows you to declaratively in C# with IntelliSense and type safety and autocomplete, right? Define what on earth your distributed app is. And so this AppHost project, if you right click add Aspire in VS, we give you a blank AppHost with one line. It's usually like var builder, and then it's var my API equals whatever API you added Aspire to. This is what it can look like fully fleshed out. And I'm not going to dive too much into what's actually going on in this example. I like to start with the big example and then break it down. But I want to show you we're defining everything that's going on in this repo here in C#. And so if I have 5, hopefully I set the right project. Yes, I did. Very good. There's a new way to set launch startup projects in C# DevKit. And I never remember which machine I have it turned on or off on. And then I keep messing myself up, but it's fine. You'll notice this is actually starting the AppHost project. So there's a bagillion other C# projects in here, .NET projects, whatever, my APIs, my database stuff, my processing, the actual Blazor web app, which is the front end of eShop. But this solely started the AppHost project. It didn't do a multiple solution configuration. It didn't do anything. And it popped up the dashboard here. And so I don't have Docker on, so I need to open that up. Docker or Podman you can use for your container runtime. That's what this runtime unhealthy thing means. I just zoomed in Docker unnecessarily. It's pretty funny. But these are all the actual projects and components that we defined in that AppHost running now on my machine. I'm debugging things, right? I'm running it through VS Code. This is actually showing me errors, which are probably because something wasn't turned on yet. Yeah, I couldn't find the database yet because the database is still starting because Aspire is starting it, and now it tells me it's running. So that error is going to go away. The ordering processor that uses RabbitMQ, it takes a little bit longer to start up. But I can declare, hey, wait for this before you start. Wait for that before you start. Okay, start now, whatever it is. The Aspire dashboard has a lot of features. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open the website. So this is a Blazor app. We all know Blazor. We love it. I'll click around and do some things to populate the telemetry. I'm going to, that login button is busted. No Bitwarden. Please don't remember my fake password. I know it's a fake password. It's going to go do the auth connection, whatever it's trying to do here. And I can see VS Code is flashing at me because I hit an exception in my web app. Navigate to, can't find. Because when I run under the Aspire AppHost, it is debugging everything. Even if this wasn't Razor, right? I could do this with NPM or whatever I want. So I'll just continue because it's a fake error. But now I'm fake logged in. And I can go into my dashboard and I can actually go see what just happened. So there's this structured logs page on the side here. And what I'm seeing is all of the calls between all of the different pieces of my app. So my web app is, receiving and sending its HTTP stuff. I can see all of the stuff that my API is doing. The identity API was flashing earlier. I can filter this, so I'll go down to like error. I can see where the identity API just hit that breakpoint or that exception. I can see the ordering command failing, maybe because the thing wasn't awake yet. I don't know. I can go and I can click on for details. I can say, oh, the migration ID. Okay, investigate this way. I can also, this will be the only AI in this talk, I promise. I can also ask Copilot to explain it for me. This is a new feature as far as since May. And we built Copilot into the dashboard, just how you expect it. As long as you launch from VS Code or VS, it will wire up automatically if you're signed in there with your Copilot subscription. So it looks like, yeah, it's an EF issue. It's going through all my different logs and parts of my app. The recommendations it has, it wants me to go look at the log specifically for Postgres. So I can click on that, go to the Postgres resource. Let me go to its logs here. I can see the raw logs. Yep, it looks like it's more migration errors. Cool. Amazing debugging tool. And for those of you who have felt the pain of having to start every single API individually and then start the front end and then click between all the different terminal windows, you know this is amazing. Then I can just go like, oh, wait, no, that's that. I want to go to this API. Oh, cool. There are my logs. Sweet. We also show like full traces, right? So the structured logs give you a really good idea of what's happening. The structured traces are showing the actual interconnections between all these things. So if I click on the processor one, you can say it's processing something, probably adding to the cart, right? To my database. Where's the one where there's some errors? This one. Getting the item. I can see all of the details about this, the whole flow. I can see how long it took to go through the basket API versus the actual post request itself, what's going on in here with identity. It's super, super rich. So there's a bunch of other dashboard features. I could go into them. My favorite thing is this. It's a graph. It shows you how everything's interconnected, and you can just drag them around and they all wiggle. Look at this. Look at that. And then you click on it and it gives you the details. Oh, so cute. That's really what Aspire gives you, though, locally, first pass. Let's look at how. The best way to do this, usually, is to start a new project that's less stressful looking. So we will open a new VS Code window. How am I doing on time? Oh, I'm doing great. I'm amazing. We will go into, how do I want to do this? Let's do this. I'm going to go to my source folder. I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it Trailblazer Demo. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to select. So we have a CLI, the Aspire CLI. It is in preview right now. We're working towards shipping it. And you can use the built-in C# dev kit stuff if you want to do the new solution, whatever. You can also just use our CLI. So right now it's a .NET tool. Let me close Copilot. Let me drag this upwards and zoom this in a little bit. So right now it is a .NET tool, which means you want to do something like .NET tool install what's already typed in here, except without the extra parameters. Aspire CLI is what it's called. And then you want to do pre-release because it's still in preview. But that will pull it from the public NuGet feed. Oh no, my computer is making a loud noise. Okay. All right. I'm going to turn off all my containers while I'm here. That is one thing about Aspire is you can set containers to live between runs. But that does mean if you like stop the project and go to like, I don't know, take a nap. What do we do here? It will continue to run those containers on your machine. So the next time you have 5, you don't have to wait for them to start back up. And then sometimes you can just have Postgres running on your container for 3 days on your system. So why is this frozen? Okay, no, it's fine. All right. So I'm going to use the Aspire CLI to bootstrap this project. I'm going to do Aspire new. And it's going to give me the options here. And so these are actually just the same templates you get in .NET, but I'm just showing you in the command line. Why is the E highlighted? What is going on with my terminal? Once I create the project, I'm going to have to reload this VS Code because something weird is happening. But I'm going to do the starter app, which is the same as our starter app in VS Code, whatever it is. What this is going to give me is, I'm going to put it here. Blazor front end, a web API backend, the Aspire AppHost connecting the two, and then the Aspire ServiceDefaults project, which is how we turn the things on, and I'll show it to you. Cool, project successfully created. Sweet, sweet. And so let's just run it. Aspire run. What run does is it finds the AppHost project wherever it is. It stores it in a temporary file at the root of your repo, wherever you run the first time, so it doesn't have to search every time. And it's the most complicated settings file in the entire world. Look at this. Whoa. Oh my God. And then it spins it up and it tells you its endpoints. That's all it is. So here's the same dashboard, but this is for my Trailblazer demo Aspire starter app. I can click into here and say, okay, here's my front end. Oh, you probably have all been familiar with this if you've done the file new Blazor app before. So I'll click on the weather page. It's hitting it from the API. Sweet. Awesome. Love that for us. Cool. I can go in here. Everything's already turned on. I can actually see the front end trying to hit that API. I don't know why the API isn't actually showing me its logs right now. Oh, no, it is right there. Yeah, there we go. Sweet. That's it. Aspirified, right? How does that actually work? So, like we looked at in eShop, this AppHost is the concept of the thing that throws everything together, that defines it. And so in the starter project, we have two things. We have the AP. Why did you just Solution Explorer? Wake up. If you're a C# dev kit user, by the way, if this isn't down here, projects, that means C# dev kit Solution Explorer didn't load correctly. What you want to do is go here and it'll either say open solution or something, or you can do right click, rebuild. Sometimes you just need to open it and then Control-Shift-P, reload the window. So that will pop up, right? My friend, maybe I need to reload. Oh no, there it is. I just need to click back and click away. Okay. Very simple here. One is we're adding this API service, which is this .NET project. It's just linked as a project reference in my AppHost. Let me close my terminal. Go away. Okay. Right? Project reference. We know what this looks like. API service. And I'm giving it a name. I'm giving it a magic string name, API service. So that's just how I will refer to its endpoint one day. And what it's called in the dashboard. I'm also adding my Blazor front end. I am saying that this, when I publish this, when I deploy this, we'll talk about deployment later. This should be accessible from the internet. And so we deploy via Azure Container Apps. We make you what's called an Azure Container Apps environment. That's our opinionated way to deploy. With Aspire, you can deploy however you want. You don't have to use our stuff. But right now, what we do is we say, hey, let people hit the front end or whatever website you want to be able to externally expose. And then we add health checks to both of these. So it's saying to Aspire, hey, I have registered a health check for this API and this website at the endpoint health. We'll show you how we do that too. And then this is where the stitching begins, is this with reference and wait for. And so in this case, it's saying, hey, the front end needs to be aware of this API service. It also probably shouldn't start until the API service starts, so that when I F5, I don't have a bunch of errors on my web front end instantly, right? Okay, so let's look at the front end. Let's look at the Blazor app. It is the file new Blazor app with a couple lines of code added and or changed. First and foremost, we are hitting what is called add service defaults. And if I control click on this, you see it takes me actually into the service defaults project. So this is code that we add to your app, to your repository, that turns things on. That's all it is. It is the least fancy thing of all time. But if you scroll through it, you can kind of get an idea of what we're doing. So we're giving you health checks and etc. We're turning on open telemetry, health checks, service discovery, which that magic string comes back to be important about, and then HTTP client defaults. So we have resiliency, which is the poly retry thing. We're making it so that HTTPS works without you having to figure out every time how HTTPS works and cores doesn't blow up or whatever web chaos. And then we're just doing some of the logging wiring, right? So this is just a C# file. Like I said, it's a project that when you do a right click add Aspire or a new Aspire app, we give you this project. You go into your source and you do add service defaults. It just turns all those things on. That's a really good place for you to make changes based on your company or your paradigms. You can either, push a central service defaults that every new app gets to pull from, or every existing app needs to implement, or you could push it as a NuGet package. You could do whatever you want, but it's code, right? So if I don't want an alive endpoint, or if I want health to be health with a Z, or I want to use the health UI with the Z thing, I can just edit it. It's just code. The next thing we do here is, instead of referencing this by a sticky URL, and if you work with people cross-platform, so you have someone on a Mac and someone on a PC, and they both have other APIs that they work on, and one of them clones one and hits F5, and then it's like, oh no, you can't use that port. That port's in use. And you're like, oh, you can just delete ports. Just get rid of them all. Nobody needs them. So in here, we have our properties, launch settings. So I'm saying here, like, I know that I want my front end to run on 5167. And I know that I want my back end to run on 5403. HTTPS also there. But I don't actually, those two things, those two products no longer need to care about each other's port. That's the word I'm looking for, port. Oh my gosh, I need another coffee. What I'm doing is I'm just saying, go talk to this thing called API service, which I defined in my AppHost right here. API service, it's a little magic string. If you hate magic strings, just turn it into a constants file and stick it in your service defaults or something, or in your AppHost. It doesn't matter to me. But look for this thing called API service and just put me wherever that port is. That's it. And then the final thing we add here is just the default endpoints. And so that's actually part of the service defaults project as well. It's saying, if this is dev, turn on my health checks. So those are the only changes, which means that if you want to add this to your app, you can right-click Add Aspire Orchestration in VS Code or VS, or you can literally go in, add these two projects. They're just the vanilla project templates, AppHost and ServiceDefaults, and write 3 lines of code. So very easy to get started with it. Okay, where am I going to go next? Let's see. We have our app. It's running. We have our AppHost. It's got the service default. It's kind of magical. Let's add something. Let's do something fancy here. The Aspire starter app has an option that you could add Redis to it. Redis for caching, right? And so when you refresh the web, it doesn't hit the thing every time. It has a set amount of time until it actually loads the endpoint. I'm going to add that manually using the command line with Aspire add. What rendering nightmare just happened? What the heck? Okay. I'm so sorry, terminal. Let me try this again. Let's try this. Clear it again for good measure. Aspire add. And actually, instead of giving the friendly name in, I'll show you what the full list looks like. This is the command line equivalent of right-click add package in VS. When you do that on an Aspire-ified project or on your Aspire app host, you can do right-click add Aspire orchestration. I'll show you in the MAUI sample. But it filters it to things that work with Aspire. That's what we're doing here in the command line. So these are just NuGet packages that we were nice enough to give to you in this cute little CLI experience. I'm going to find Redis. I can just type it in. If I can spell, that would help. Redis. Oh my God. It filters to it. Hit enter, pick the version. I'm just going to pick 931 because that's where we're at. Why is the rendering still busted? And it says it was added successfully. And so what I can do in my AppHost here, I'm going to hide this again, even though I know that's what keeps screwing up my rendering. I'm going to say var Redis equals builder.add Redis. Copilot's actually right. That's cool. Oh, that's not right, though. My goodness. And this is now from that Redis extension AppHost package, the way to add a Redis container. And so it turns on the built-in health checks. It turns on the open telemetry. It pulls the default packet tag of the container image. You can see it's 7.4 right now. And it is now something I can reference elsewhere in my app. I'm not going to give it any fancy settings right now, but I could do something like with Redis Commander or Redis Insight, right? Which are extensions that Redis has that let you see things in the browser. So yeah, I'll put Redis Commander in here and we'll call that. Why is this a problem? Oh, it doesn't need a name. That's cool. Oh, Copilot, you try so hard. Now, in my API service, what I'm going to do is add the reference to Redis with reference Redis. And in this case, it's a variable. So I'm just going to use the variable name, right? And then I'll do one more, wait for Redis. So that tells it wait until Redis turns on before you turn on. I'm going to hit F5 again. Oh, I'm going to go through the... Oh, because I ran on the command line last time. I was like, why is this making me do it again? We'll hit F5 this time. Like a real developer. let it build and spin. It'll turn everything on. There we go. And now I can see that it actually in my Docker just pulled 2 brand new Redis images that were not there, including the Redis commander image. It started those. It is now starting up the API service. It's actually checking its health. It's polling it based on the health checks that's Aspire turned on for it. The current status is not found. All right, let's see what's going on here, right? We could probably do this. Waiting for the resource. Okay, we're up. Let's go to health. Uh-oh, something's not turning on. Let's figure out why it's not turning on. The logs were fine, so what's the issue? Click here. Listening on 50. Yeah, so that's good. Is the port wrong? I just found a bug. That's very exciting. 989. So let's do this. And then let's do health here. No. Okay, VS Code. Did you do something? Stop. Let's try Aspire run. Clear. Aspire run. The process not found. Interesting. That's new. Oh, I'm going to add something to this for the next time we run it too. This is with lifetime. And what I'm going to do is give it container lifetime dot persistent, which means stop turning it off when I restart my app. Okay, that worked. Running. Is there a bug? This is exciting. Live debugging. My favorite. Did I delete something? Why did adding Redis break it? I'm going to give this, what time is it? I'm going to give this 2 minutes of debugging, and you can watch how I would debug something like this IRL. First thing is just turn that off and see if I busted something there. Oh, wait, did I change? Let's look at my... Oh, I don't have Git on. Let's look at my timeline here. Nope, that doesn't have anything useful. Let's look at here. I didn't change anything in here, right? Oh, well, that would do it. Oh, my goodness. I'm a real engineer, by the way. Now there's an issue. Oh, Redis doesn't exist because I commented it out. Let's try that again. Aspire run. So the CLI is in preview, so a lot of this UI stuff is still going to change, sadly, because there's, as you can see, still some rendering bugs, but it's pretty awesome. Okay, everything is running, so that was exactly the issue. It couldn't pull the health check because I literally was not giving it the correct health endpoint, which is pretty funny. Looks like I'm doing the same thing here, but this is working at least. So now I can do this, right? I can see in my resources of the API service in the details here that I'm actually now passing a Redis connection string in. Yeah, I know it's a sensitive value. And so it automatically knows how to talk to Redis. I haven't actually wired it up yet in the API, but it has all the information it needs to talk to it now. And so if I were to go into the API, I could actually pull in. Let's go to the API service program. Hide this again. I'm going to do NuGet package, add NuGet package. I'm going to put it in the API service. I'm going to do aspire.redis. Hit enter. We'll see if that finds it. Yep. Aspire Stack Exchange Redis. Which one do I want? Let's just try that one. So it's going to ask me to select package. I'll just do the preview. That's great. Love that. Meet. I guess it just worked. And then I'm going to do builder.add Redis client, just like that. Now this is going to give me my IntelliSense issues. It wants to know the connection name. So that's just called Redis. That's what I named it in my AppHost. Very cool. Now, I don't know if this is actually going to wire it up totally yet, but we can run it just anyways and F5 it. And we'll see that at least that turns on in the logs. And then we'll move over to Maui. La, 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 la. Starting. Now it has this pin, which is how we tell it that it's persistent. Don't stop it when I end F5. So it stays awake every time, which is cool. And if I go into my API service here, it has that connection string. Yep, everything looks good here. Sweet. Sweet. Cool. And everything's all ready to go. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to see it doesn't flash there anymore. If we go here and we view my logs, you can see I'm actually talking to Redis, just like that. Just like that. So then I can go and do like all the fun things like change the heartbeat time and, how much should be in the cache or whatever it is. But I literally just did .add Redis client and I have magical caching in my API. Like kind of nutso. So let's look at Maui. Oh, I didn't need to do that like there. But you can stop things from the dashboard, which is pretty nice, which means you can hot reload things, you can edit things, whatever it is. Let's close out of this. Let's open Visual Studio. Let's go here. So, scroll. What am I in? Meet Maui. So, this is Gerald Versluis on the Maui team. If you are a YouTube person, you've definitely seen his face. I asked him a few months ago, I said, can you finally make all this work? And he said, sure, I will do that for you. And he did. And so a lot of this stuff is in preview because we had to make some changes to Maui itself that are going to ship as part of .NET 10. So this app is actually on .NET 10 preview. But this is a template you can get today. I have the link to the GitHub repo. I'll send it to you at the end. You can watch Gerald's video on all of this. But the template gives you a Maui app ready to roll for Aspire. So super simple. I have the same web API that we were using in the last project. And then I have a Maui project instead of a regular project. So if I have a zoom in on, yep, you can see this is just good old Maui. I don't know why these things aren't nesting. That's peculiar. In my Maui program, I have that same add ServiceDefaults call. And this is a special version of ServiceDefaults for instead of web APIs, Maui apps, right? Mobile apps. Most of them actually still apply, but you can see that I have these Maui Aspire service defaults and Maui app service defaults. And this is the one in the Maui app. So this is the specific service defaults for Maui. They're separate than what goes on the web API, not by much, but because you're doing things specific to mobile apps and how we pass environment variables and telemetry back and forth is different over localhost with an emulator, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you do hybrid like web and mobile development, you know, it is a pain in the butt like Maui. Okay, so I'm going to run it. What's cool now with if you're targeting the AppHost as your startup project and you have Maui in there, you can actually pick what it runs on. So I can pick Windows or Android. Windows isn't a very exciting demo because all the stuff just magically works. Android's a much more exciting demo because getting this to hit your API locally is always a pain in the ass. What I did on the side here was start a dev tunnel. Oh, before I show you the dashboard, I'll show you the dev tunnel. And so we're actually working on automating this within Aspire, within the AppHost. But right now, if you clone Gerald's sample project and you use the template, you have to put in just a dev tunnel that starts up and it basically says, hey, let the dashboard talk to the API, which means let the OTel from the mobile app all talk to each other. Just let Android talk. I'm going to minimize that. I'm going to pull up the dashboard. I can see that's working, right? I have my dashboard, my MAUI app, my web API. Of course, there's no endpoint for a MAUI app because it's running in a device. I'm going to click on it. Oh, what is the bug? Oh, no, there we go. It was just slow. I'm going to click. It's going to hit my endpoint. Cool. And it's just changing the name of the weather because it's the file new API. But I can do the same thing I was doing before. I can go into my traces and I can actually see the MAUI app and the web API talking to each other. So that first one that was the longest, I can see most of the call was MAUI sending the GET, which is talking over the dev tunnel, that pipeline, all that. I can see it took a really long time. The server address, this is actually the dev tunnel I'm running on. Yeah, lots of magic in there. And so now Aspire is orchestrating not just if I have the web app or the web API, but it's also orchestrating the mobile conversation. So you could clone a full repo and get all of it running on F5. Very cool. Okay. What else do I want to show in MAUI before I stop? Beth later today is going to give you the great hybrid MAUI overview. So I don't really need to explain why MAUI is the best and why we all love it. Is there anything else I want to show in here? I don't think so. Yeah. Something will come up maybe and I'll remember it. So let's go back to slides. Scroll. We talked about integrations. Let's start here. Okay, let's start here. So that add Redis client, whatever, those are called Aspire integrations. These are some of the ones we have. We have way more than when I made this slide for the first time. We keep adding them because we're crazy. A lot of them are actually in our community toolkit, which we totally stole from MAUI, which stole that from Windows. We have a community toolkit that's totally open source, just like Aspire is, where you can go and contribute integrations for things that you want. Olam has been a super popular one in there. And what Aspire gives you with an integration is also polyglot. So what I showed today was Blazor. I'm sure most of you have Blazor for your front ends. But if you were using Python for like an inference script for AI, or if you have a admin site in Node, because the team that builds the admin stuff is a JavaScript team, right? You can also orchestrate all of those with Aspire. You can just add them as Docker files. You could do that. That's totally allowed. The way that you would add any container with Aspire, you can use builder, add Docker file, or you can just use one of our integrations for these languages, which will really simplify it. In this case, it's just saying, okay, name the app this in my dashboard. This is where it's located, and give it this environment variable. That's it. So now you can start stringing in not just .NET and Blazor and MAUI, but you can start stringing in everything else with these same integrations that are bootstrapping Redis or Postgres or whatever it is. We did the demo. We have a bagillion samples. So go to the samples repo. Before we wrap up, I want to talk about deployment, because deployment is a whole party. The world is split. A lot of big enterprises have, DevOps teams. And so your DevOps people do not let you touch anything. But that also means it's very hard to test if everything is going to work properly in the cloud when you're doing things locally. Some of you are like the do-it-all dev, where not only are you writing the code, but you are the one trying to ship the code. And that is a whole party as well. What's cool about Aspire is that you can use it just for local development. So you don't have to change the way you're doing things. You don't have to yell at your DevOps team and make them update a bunch of scripts if you're using something like, Terraform. You don't have to do any of that. The service discovery with Aspire, it's just environment variables. So you just need to figure out what the environment variable is called and make sure that your deployment scripts all reflect that. But that's pretty much the only change. What we give you is a right-click publish. Don't get mad. Sort of a right-click publish experience right now with Azure's Developer CLI, AZD, so that you can actually spin this whole thing up in a staging environment or on your personal work dev sub on Azure to see how everything works deployed. not just locally, and make sure that before you deploy it, everything works normally. And the way that deploy it to prod, everything works normally. You can also use this to deploy to prod. Every time we've tried to pitch this as a way to deploy to prod, people are like, what are you talking about? Like, I would never command line my way to production. That is horrifying. I would do that in a GitHub action. So that's why I don't talk about it like that, but it totally works because it's just using Azure Container Apps, which are basically Kubernetes, but like hidden in a nice, pretty little box. So you just, I don't know, push it in container apps very easily. I can actually show you this right now. AZD init, AZD up, right? Those are the two commands. So if we go into here, or we go into, let's pull back up, eShop, insiders. Or this is my other demo. Let's do this, AZD init. I should be up. Use code in my current directory. It's going to scan it. It's going to find my Aspire app and be like, oh, this is an Aspire app, sick. Then I know exactly what to do. Detected Aspire, yep. New environment name, nope. Oh, trail. Blazor. My app is ready for the cloud. So it just generated some files for me that AZD now knows how to interpret when it goes up. It's going to analyze my app. Oh, that's exciting. I got to log back in. I'm not updating in the middle of a demo. I'm smart. Did that actually copy it? Yep. Let's log in. It's popping it up in another window so you can't see my password. Very smart, Azure. I'm very proud of you for that. Cool. Let's AZD up again. Sweet. So that's going to cook in the background when we finish up slides, and I'll show you what that looks like. But that gives you an Azure Container Apps environment and deployment, and you can customize those things in the AppHost with C#. You don't actually have to go into the Blazor because you can just customize them in code right here. So in this case, it would be giving it a custom domain or giving it a scale to 0. What we are working on now is an extension of this called right now we're calling it the publisher model. Who knows what we're going to call it in a week? We keep changing our minds. But the idea is that it works very similar to AZD init, where it reads your AppHost and it understands what's in there and the relationships between these things, and we're able to make you a deployment manifest, not just for AZD, but either generically in JSON or for a Docker Compose file, a Kubernetes file. I really want Terraform. We're not there yet. Right now, we're just getting it to work the same as it does with AZD. And we also have Docker Compose in preview, which is awesome. And then you can deploy to whatever environment. So you can do AZD up or whatever the AWS command is. We're also working on our own deployment story. So you can Aspire deploy. It'll do all of this, and it will give you that same like dev staging environment feel from your machine without having to go through the whole CI/CD. Let's see if this is cooked at all. Yep. Oh, I needed to click this. No. MAL. That's me. East US. Don't steal my sub ID. I don't think you can anyways because you'd have to log in as me and you don't have my password. It's going to do that for a few more seconds. Yeah. And then it's going to give me my actual deployment URL. Do this. Zoom in a little bit. It's created my resource group. It's created this deployment. And then it's going to start doing the rest of it. Right? And so what it's doing is it's actually, nope, not that tab, this tab. It is creating a log analytics workspace to hold all of those logs that I'm getting from the open telemetry that are in my API. It's creating this container apps environment, which is basically a virtual network of containers where only in the sample app, my front end is exposed as an actual endpoint I can hit. It's going to put a generic Redis container up there that's also connected to everything, so it works the same way. We'll let it keep cooking. I timed this horribly. I should have ran this and actually entered my subscription, but I forgot. It's always a kind of like I never know if I'm going to have time for the deployment demo because it just depends on how VS and everything is cooperating and whatever it is. The CLI has made my demos a lot faster, which has been hard for me to adjust to. So we get to actually deploy, but that means that my deployment flow is not super optimal. I'll let it keep cooking for a little bit. We'll go back to the slide so I can show you some resources. Aspire is in .NET 9. Great news. All you have to do is install the templates. If you install Visual Studio, the templates come included. If you want to go through the command line, you can just get the Aspire CLI and that pulls everything in for you. We have the variety of samples that I showed. We have fully open source GitHub. We are very invested in our GitHub issues. We talk a lot on there. We talk on the Discord for .NET. We have a learning course. We have all of the YouTube videos. On Fridays, we do live streams now where we Aspireify real apps. And real is in quotes because sometimes we can't actually show you the end repo because it is a legitimate customer's app, but they will share their screen and show what we're doing in the source code to make everything work and to actually Aspireify it, which is the real verb. This link here is Gerald's MAUI sample. And in there is also a link to the YouTube video where he talks about all of this and shows you how to set it up and how to actually put it into your existing apps. So if you have a MAUI hybrid app or something today, you can do that right away. Let's see how this is doing. Okay, my container apps is ready, so that should have popped up in here. Right, let's refresh it. Yeah, resources. There we go. So yep, my container apps environment's up, my workspace, the containers, the managed identity, all of the things that I need for a deployment are all magically happening. And eventually, the rest of my stuff will show up, right? So what will happen here is I'll actually get a link to the dashboard hosted in container apps. And so I'm not deploying the dashboard. Container apps has a container image of the Aspire dashboard that it's able to read within the container apps environment. So it can, at runtime live, actually see everything that is happening the same way I see it locally with my dashboard. And that's just what we do. There we go. My deployment's complete. Let's go to the RG. There's my container apps environment. Let's click on that. I have my own container registry where everything is hosting. I have my own link to the dashboard, so I can click here. Now I can see working. There we go. This is hosted in my Salmon Ocean container apps environment. And no resources found. I disagree with that, but that's okay. Let's see what else is that thing. EasyDN Trailblazer, resource group. Let's go here. The container apps environment. Resource visualizer. Huh. Weird. That's another bug. I mean, you all saw that my version of AZD was like 800 years old, so maybe I broke something. But I can at least see that my dashboard doesn't work. So that's good debugging. Yeah, and I can go and I can click on my resources. I'm gonna figure that out. That's pretty funny. Did I get an error here? Oh, it hasn't finished deploying the service. That's why it's not broken. I'm just impatient. But it's 2:55. So I'm just gonna let this cook. And I will maybe tweet out a screenshot or something after. But there we go. Yeah, now the API has been deployed. Now all these things are gonna start showing up. Yeah, I'm just impatient. I get it. I get it. Right? Yeah. So now it has, yeah, it's cooking. Sweet.